A very good morning to you all and a warm welcome to VOS People and News this Saturday here on 933 KFM. It's 6 minutes past 9 o'clock. My name is Judith Atim, and today we are asking what lies ahead as political parties and individuals gear up for the 2026 polls. And as you all know, the political season is quite busy. It is picking up, definitely. The 2026 general elections are fast approaching. Our parties are in high gear. And of course, we want to look at a number of issues today, but we're going to focus more on the political party and individual strategies, including issues like mobilization, internal party dynamics, how will parties handle issues of dissent and defections, campaign themes and messaging. What are political parties focusing on, and will their messages resonate with voters? Also, the monetization of politics. How is this going to play along this time around? Are we going to see more money being spent this time around in politics or less? And what does this mean, broadly speaking, for our politics? Another issue, of course, that we'd like to focus on would be coalition building and alliances. What scenarios are we likely to see in the months ahead? Do we see parties breaking up further? Do we see others forming loose coalitions and so on? Of course, we also need to talk about the expected political climate and challenges, issues of security and impartiality of our enforcement agencies, the civic space and freedoms. Will parties be allowed to assemble, to mobilize, to basically exercise their political and civic rights, issues of electoral violence, and of course the economic impact of these elections? My guests are with me in the studio, two of them. Honorable Dr. Michael Lulumebaiga, from the Democratic Party. He is a lawyer. No, he's a doctor. Like, you can't be a doctor and a lawyer.
You can.
A medical doctor, not an academic.
Medical doctor, and you can be a lawyer.
Okay, Honorable Dr. Lulumebaiga, Buikwe South Member of Parliament. Good to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, our listeners.
I also have with me Council George Musisi from the National Unity Platform Party. He's a human rights lawyer and aspiring Member of Parliament for Kira Municipality. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Judith. Good morning, listeners. Pleasure to be here, as always.
Okay. I'll let you know our other guests as they come in. But to start with you, Dr. Lulumebaiga, you're just coming from the DP Delegates Conference, and of course, the other week, I think for the last 2 weeks, that dominated much of the news.
That's what the shadow president. Or the people's president of DP.
Well, of course, we would like to hear.
Some good nomenclature.
After the delegates conference, what's your plan? Are you still a DP member? Are you planning to move on to other things? Are you still contesting on the DP ticket? We'd just like to hear from you.
Yeah, we took DP to court. We took Mao and his other friends, because we want court to pronounce itself on whether Mao is leading the Democratic Party we know, or the DP-NRM cocktail party. And court will decide.
Why are you calling it a cocktail party?
It's a cocktail because it is the will of President Museveni and Mao that what happened in Barara happened. And therefore, that is the status. And if at all court expedites this quickly, it will help me to make a decision whether I should belong to the DP-NRM cocktail party led by Norbert Mao, who happens to be a minister in President Museveni's government, masquerading as a leader of an opposition party, or I knock the doors to elsewhere where people will welcome me with warm hands.
You're looking at George. Are you thinking George's camp would welcome you with open hands?
I believe they would.
Okay, thank you very much. So, George, I'm coming to you, of course, just very quickly, and then I go and we look at the highlights of the week, and then again, you guys will comment. How is the journey like so far? I think it's a very busy season for you already, campaign-wise.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's an campaigning season, and as we all know, elections are a process. We are already right in the middle of elections because if you look at the EC roadmap, there are many activities that have already going, and of course, campaigns take place prior. So it's a busy season for nominations across all parties. It's a busy season both at an individual and at an institutional level. And of course, for the responsibilities that cut across, it gets even busier. But of course, by God's grace, you do what you can. And we believe that even from the fallout from Barara, Doctor is warmly welcome at Kavule. We have a befitting attire.
So are you going to have a red and green cocktail?
No, when he comes, of course, he leaves the green. You won't go like Mao, who is wearing green and yellow.
But you'll also be wearing green and red, or you'll move to red fully?
Well, it will depend on the welcome address.
So, George, congratulations, of course, on your nominations on Thursday. I think that now clears the path for you.
Thank you. Of course, our party, like many other parties, are already in the process of identifying flag bearers. People are returning forms of expression of interest, and just like you've rightly said, I've also done my part for the constituents of Chira municipality, where I intend to carry my party's flag, and we'll tussle it out with all the other candidates from the other parties that may front candidates. I know that other parties are also going through the same processes, and may they put the best candidate forward.
Thank you. Doctor, someone said that you will walk to Balintuma Road and ask for a party ticket, this being a time of running for tickets ahead of nominations.
Well, that is an opinion expressed.
Okay, so very quickly, let's take a look at, of course, the biggest issues that made it in the news this week. Of course, starting with the nominations of candidates for various positions, which continued this week at NRM for the next month's primaries, and also NUP's exercise to choose their flag bearers. The NRM Electoral Commission Chairperson Dr. Tango Doi said 2,718 aspirants expressed interest, but only 676 candidates are expected to secure the party's flag for the 2026 polls, and that so far NRM has bagged more than 6.9 billion shillings from nomination fees collected just during this period alone. And also on Monday, the PFF held its executive committee meeting to lay a strategy on how to face the road ahead, while DF's interim leader Matthias Mpuga also spent the better part of this week in Teso region rallying for next week's delegates conference and the grand launch of his party. NUP has not charged aspirants any fees. The Democratic Party, of course, is still struggling to heal from the wounds of the National Delegates Conference, which was held 3 weeks ago in Barara.
Exhibiting theft of the worst kind.
To find political balance. Some members are still feeling aggrieved. From the blue corner, FDC's candidates for the next presidential flag bearer, Honorable Patrick Amuri Atoboy and Honorable Nathan Nandala Mafabi, have continued traversing the country with their joint campaigns before party members ahead of next month's National Delegates Conference, in which they will hold the polls and choose who will hold the party flag for the presidency. In the same political vein, special interest groups elections were held on Monday, Tuesday and Thursday across Uganda for the elderly, persons with disabilities, the youth and women. And President Yoweri Museveni has also spent this week resuming his codenamed wealth creation tours in areas of Butambala, Mukono, where he has visited farms and held rallies, which some critics have termed political mobilization campaigns. And on a rather sad note, the former Supreme Mufti of Uganda, Sheikh Suleiman Kasule Ndirangwa, yesterday breathed his last from Mengo Hospital, where he had been hospitalized for a week. Funeral arrangements will be communicated in due course, and of course here at KFM we are following this, and our news teams and desks will be providing you the updates as they come in. And on the international scene, Israel and Iran have continued to exchange airstrikes a week into their war, with Israel's military targeting areas in western Iran. That's this morning. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in Geneva for talks with his British, French, German and EU counterparts in an effort to end the conflict. But the U.S. envoy to the Middle East skipped the meeting. U.S. President Donald Trump has said he is still considering a U.S. military strike on Iran's nuclear sites and will make a final decision in the next 2 weeks. Israeli strikes have killed at least 639 people in Iran since the conflict began a week ago, with more than 2,500 people wounded, while the death toll in Israel from Iran's retaliatory strikes remains at 24. Well, just very quickly, I'll start with you again, Doctor. Just your quick thoughts. I know some of the issues already feed into our conversation for this morning, but you could still also pick a few, one or two issues that you'd like to just share your reflections on.
In terms of...
just what I read, what stood out for you in the week, and what are your thoughts, whether it's Iran and the strikes between Iran and Israel, or even our domestic developments here?
Well, I have not been following the international realm, and I have been preoccupied in settling issues, as you have just read that the Democratic Party is still healing wounds, and I am trying to lick those wounds to hide them away from the flies, and making consultations. We are also bracing to receive Mr. Museveni, who is coming tomorrow in my constituency. I don't know why he's coming to my constituency. Yesterday he was in Mukono also doing his campaign. Actually, it is a campaign disguised as oversight on PDM. President making oversight on PDM, and he's going to be welcomed tomorrow in my constituency. So I was also touching the pulse to see what exactly he would like to do in Wikwe South, and I understand that he wants to make a presence in Wikwe South again. Mm-hmm. So that is what is taking place, and I think those people who analyze that he is trying to make a comeback in Uganda, especially in constituencies and districts which he was bruised very badly in that general election. Well, he will find the people will go there to welcome him. We are welcoming people, and we welcome guests, and I have also written to him an executive brief as a head of state coming to a constituency, and as a civilized member of this society, I've prepared an executive brief, but I don't believe that I can get space in his rally
to share that.
But I have written it, and I've also shared it with the minister in charge of the presidency, and I believe it has reached his desk.
Okay.
He'll be in position to answer those issues which I have put across while I am away on other business.
Okay. So just before you go off, before I move on to George rather, your assessment of PDM in your constituency, is it transformative as you would expect? And I want to hear also the good side. I know if you see something positive and progressive that PDM is doing in your constituencies, I'd also like to hear that. But I also like, of course, to hear what the gaps are.
Yeah. What we would do as members of Parliament was to monitor how Pillar 5 is being rolled out. And Pillar 5 was about rolling out the giving out of 1 million per qualifying person. And I can say with certainty that most of the people got the money. There are other flaws related, especially when people connive. They work with those people who are supposed to give them money, and they make deals. If at all you want this season, then I can give you 800, so that I keep 200 with me. So they cut their deals, and then they cry out later to members of Parliament when we engage them. And then they will ask you, how much am I supposed to pay back? Is it 1 million or 800 or 700, as the case could have been? So those things happen. But to say the least, at least they got the money. And whether or not that money was invested in any business venture, it is too close to predict how that money is going to grow. And in my communique to the president, I was advising him, as a senior citizen, these are government funds. that people should not dupe you, that go and visit so-and-so who has invested 100 million in a farm and has been working for some good amount of time, to go under that dupery to do oversight on PDM of somebody who has never received your million, but has been investing over time to establish a piggery, to establish a good farm and so on. Let them, he should also discern and be taken to those people who got a million and see how that million can grow. And I think that is where the president should emphasize, so that we can see that kind of transformation from somebody who didn't have money to somebody who got a million for the first time and he has invested it wisely or not wisely. We can do a study about that. But it is still early to make that judgment. Some of them have got this money that financial year, others previously. We want to see those who invested in growing maize, those who invested in piggery projects, rabbit, what is it called? Rabbit keeping? Apiary, whatever it is. Let us know that this money could transform this person, makes some little bit of profit, or he has not even made profit, but we can see progress from somebody who is investing some little money into something that is promising to give him at least 10,000 or 50,000 in a month. That will be a transformation that we want to see, but I believe it is too early to call.
All right, thank you. George, your very quick thoughts or reflections on any of the issues that I just read in our news highlights.
Of course, the big one was the special interest group elections, especially the youths, which have a huge number of people participating as compared to maybe the elderly or the people with disabilities, which were taking place on Thursday, and which we are marred by the same irregularities, malpractices and offences that we've known elections to be characterized with. Not just in those that I witnessed, but even across, as I read in the media and watched. So, which is also one of the bad stains we have, that an election cannot go without the same irregularities that we've always witnessed. Then secondly, and perhaps a highlight, is the big number of people that we've continued to see through our party headquarters seeking to aspire for different political offices. As you are aware, our party headquarters have been a beehive of activity for the last 1 week or so. And if you look at the age group, if you look at the interest, if you look at the excitement and passion, I think it sends a strong message that maybe there is a bigger need or a bigger desire for people to actively participate in or take an engagement in what is happening in their country, which has also been highlighted.
Okay, but of course from the NRM camp we're seeing lots of jubilation, especially in regards to the outcomes of the special interest groups, and they're hoping that this would translate to a massive or a landslide in 2026.
Every time we have special interest group elections, even these elections which go by particular, which are not universal suffrage, NRM tends to monopolize them. If you see the way they hold elections for the elderly MPs, for the workers MPs, it's almost tantamount to an NRM affair. It's almost a closed-off affair. And of course, this time I think there was because of the bigger need for the youths to participate and the awakening for change that many political parties, including NUP, have tried to drive into the youth that please take a more active role. Someone was commenting on the media, said that this was the first time they are seeing youth elections that publicized. So they try to bring bring a message that no, actually, even with this one, you don't control it. Some of them are practices, and I hope you give us a chance to talk about them. Were deliberate. The distorted registers, the turning away of people who have come to vote by security agencies, the disruption by RDCs, the disruption by security officers. It was deliberate. It was meant to send a message. So, for me, the disappointment is with the Electoral Commission, that we are seeing the same recurrent issues day in, day out. And it's deliberate to send a message that no, actually opposition doesn't control this group. And they have always, actually NRM has always tried to monopolize the special interest group elections. And this time, there was actually more zeal by the youths to participate in those issues. So it cannot come out as a true reflection of what transpired.
Okay, thank you. I'm just getting a question here that the opposition has had this cry of NRM monopolizing site polls for a long time. What can't the opposition do that NRM has been doing?
Well, opposition doesn't control security agencies. For instance, we talked about the involvement of security officers. Opposition should also mobilize a counter force to engage the security officers. The issue is with the manager, who is supposed to be the arbiter of the elections, which is the Electoral Commission. Even this week, when I had the chairperson, when he was addressing the press, he was making the same cry. You can imagine the referee was pleading with security officers not to interfere with the elections. So the opposition has had the same cry because it has been recurrent, like I've said. And the biggest cry is the involvement of security officers in elections. That is so. Either the manager of the election says that no, you stop, or else I don't hold the election, or I don't know whether the person who sends the message wants the opposition to mobilize a counter force to take on the security officers. Short of that, we can only raise this issue and ask Ugandans to beware.
But just before we take a break, very quickly, and to both of you, just how prepared were your respective parties for the special interest groups elections?
For us as NUP, we have been actually very prepared. 2 weeks ago, we launched what we call the Umbrella Campaign. It was meant to mobilize the youths. We've moved, even in my backyard, I've noticed there's been a lot of movement. There's been a lot of excitement by the youth to participate. All the villages had all these people. And it even cuts across other parties. I noticed some other parties were also doing the same. So, in terms of preparedness, I don't think there was any station where I noticed that the opposition was not represented. The opposition had their candidates. All of them were fully represented, and some were turned away, some were distorted on the register. A while ago, they brought back the register for checking, and some of the irregularities we pointed out were not ironed out. That is the fault of the Electoral Commission. So, from where I'm standing, actually the opposition, NUP, was very prepared for the youth elections.
Okay. Dr. Baiga, on the side of DP, how prepared were you for the special interest groups?
Yeah, in some areas, of course, DP wounds were still stinking, and in some areas where the DP hope still lives, there were very good success stories. In some areas where people listened, I told, you are talking about opposition.
Yeah.
And I want to take it like that, opposition. We cannot say that opposition in itself was organized. When you put individual parties against NRM, certainly they would out-organize you.
NRM.
Yes, they can out-organize you because they have all the machinery. Even when they don't have the army or the security forces around them, they can out-organize you. They control the registers, and they control information as well. And they know their members. They can know their numbers anytime. So if at all you have NUP, you have DP, you have FDC, all of them have candidates. In the name of their respective parties, they can out-organize you and win you. And that is the only way how NRM could have won those elections. Where, for instance, where I had a deep voice, I told them, do not bother yourselves with your individual parties. We as opposition should work together. If at all the DP is strong, support that one. Then give the rest of the positions among yourselves, share. And it worked miraculously. And that is my way of work. That is how Boyukwe district was liberated, with FDC as district chairperson, me as MP, and 2 members of parliament from NUP. That was my way of organizing. And if at all you don't organize yourself beforehand, the NRM successes will always appear because they control. Their small numbers can always outweigh the big numbers you have, as long as you continue to be decimated. And that is my message, even today. So, when we are talking about opposition, George, you need to take care about how we atomize our parties, and then NRM can beat you with a minority. They can get 43%, and somebody wins you with even 35%. As long as all the parties have presented candidates, you get 20, 24.
You split the vote.
You split the vote. And so the purpose of opposition must glue all the parties, especially led by NUP, which is the major, the vanguard party now, to see how opposition parties can work together, support each other to outwit NRM in its own game. And it is possible. I can assure you, I have practiced it and I have got the experience about that.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. It's time for us to take a break, and then when we return, we dive into our discussion. What lies ahead as parties and individuals gear up for the 2026 polls? This is VPN. Welcome back from the break. This is VPN. My name is Judith Atim. It's 9:36 a.m. We are asking what lies ahead as parties and individuals gear up for the 2026 polls. I'll introduce my guests once again. Honorable Dr. Lulu Mebaiga, a member of the DP and Member of Parliament Buikwe South, Councillor George Musisi, member of the NUP. He's also an aspiring MP for Kira Municipality. He's a human rights lawyer as well. And my third guest just walked in, Mr. Herbert Anderson Burora, member of the ruling NRM party. He's also an aspiring MP for Nakawa West. Good morning, Herbert.
Even hard to let the listeners that I came late.
Good morning. No, even if we didn't tell them, they would have known. They haven't heard you speak. They haven't heard you speak all along.
Good morning, listeners, and thank you for keeping it KFM.
Good to have you.
Yes.
So, we're now moving into our discussion, and I want us to start with, of course, the look at the political parties and the campaign dynamics. First of all, what strategies are your parties employing or deploying? Herbert, would I start with you, or I give you a few minutes? Or first, gather your thoughts a little bit. When you look at issues like mobilization, how effective is this being handled? Candidate selection and internal party dynamics. George, I'd like you to also let us know, because I know a lot of times we see a lot of dissent coming up, especially when it gets to primaries, even at nomination level. I don't know how you are dealing with it as NUP. Are there voices of dissent regarding how the internal elections have been handled, or nominations? Are there threats of defections and so on? Well, we've seen also in the past, but at the moment right now, do you anticipate that, and how do you intend to effectively deal with some of these issues?
Of course, an electoral contest is a competition. You have different aspirants. Like I told you earlier, a number of people have thronged offices to pick forms and return them. That means there is a likelihood, and there are almost so many offices which are aspired for by several people. Without doubt, every time there is a contest, there will be people who are disappointed in whatever way it is held. The only issue that you have to look out for is that it is fair, it is transparent, such that the rules of the game are known by each party before contesting or before engaging in that kind of aspiration. And then, how do you have mechanisms of managing dissent? During the last general elections, we have what we call an election management committee, which we still have now. But above the election management committee, there was an appellate body which was reviewing the dissatisfied. And during that election, I sat on that committee. And actually, we received fewer grievances. So the issue is that in every contest, there will be people who may be dissatisfied. The only challenge is if you treat them unfairly, if you don't give them a voice to be heard, or if you deny them a chance to contest transparently. Even in an election, in the internal party elections, even for our friends who do the adult suffrage, where every person votes, there are always still voices of dissent. There are always people who say that they were cheated. Sometimes even they run as independents. There was one in the last election who got lesser votes in a general election than he got in the primaries. Of course, the only explanation could be that the primary was inflated, because at least if you're going into a general election, you are supposed to have at least the votes to go in the primaries. And then you have to see that you abide by the laws of the land, because parties cannot have laws or internal laws that are against the bigger laws of maybe the constitutional principles and so on and so forth. This week alone, I had a dissatisfied aspirant from NRM who was ejected for not having a proof of residence in a constituency, and I was shocked because not even our national laws allow that. Maybe had it been Nope, it would be making headlines, but now that it's coming from a party which is known for making so I think grievances without at this point there are not so many grievances yet, because it's still at a point where people are returning expression of interest. There will be, but even when they arise, every political contest may have grievances, just like any family may have grievances. The issue is that the party can do its best to provide a mechanism where people who have grievances should be heard.
Doctor, just on your side, how are you anticipating to handle dissent and issues of defections?
Well, today, since
yourself, you're actually a dissenting voice.
I am a dissenting voice already. I am supposed to be here on this talk show as the president of the Democratic Party. But now you have a president who you would address as the president of the Democratic Party, yet he's leading a DP NRM cocktail party. So you can see we still have problems. And what we have is that you will find not very many DPs vying for the same position. So it makes it quite easy, not even to have a primary election. But in normal circumstances, where DP has been a darling party, because members of the Democratic Party are also very many, they are working in very many other political parties, and they have been in the diaspora, working together with others to make things happen. But consensus building has always been one of the measures, because there are very many positions to vie for, and it is foolhardy for members of the same party to vie for the same position, the positions which are not liberated. And that is why we have been telling, even outside our own boundaries, that we don't need even to cluster ourselves on the same positions. The example I gave you in the during the break was in Wuyikwe district. I was chairman of DP, but I was also a patriarch within the region, because I was taking the people power movement in the greater Mabira stretch. Did you hear about that, George? Yes. So we decided that various members of other parties could take up various positions instead of tying yourself on one. And where that was abided by, we had success stories. That is why we had Tebandeke in Bali. That is how we had Fefe Kaserubogo in Kayunga. That is how we had Serubula in Lugazi. That is how we had Luanga. That's how we had Susan Mugabe. Okay, that is how we had the Kayondo. Gundi. This Kanabi as chairman of LC5. It was FDC. Then I think we had a very big problem at the Women Member of Parliament. We had Nakapachu of FDC, who was working with me at the sub-regional level as the People Power Movement organizers. And then we had the Navakunzi. So they tied and they refused to disentangle. And we warned them that we are going to be outwitted because of that. And it happened. It came to pass. So those lessons which we generate from time to time should be able to help the future leaders to understand this kind of dynamics. That if at all you don't disentangle and build consensus that everybody can serve and exploit their God-given potential, you will fail and miss a term and then work up for another term. And if at all you continue that way, you can continue that way until you go to your grave without exploiting your God-given potential. And for me, that is the wisdom which has been gathered over time that needs to be taken up. At this time, intra-party and inter-party working very hard to ensure that disputed seats can be amicably settled, so that somebody who can ensure a win can be given the support and another one can go for another position, because it is foolhardy for another aim to go through and oppose. And this is I'm blowing, what do you call it, a clarion call. All party leaders, especially in opposition, it is shameful for another aim cadres to go through unopposed anywhere in Uganda. Anywhere in Uganda. How can that happen? You get 6 members of parliament going through unopposed. Then how can you prove yourself that you're a national party without representatives in all parts of this country? So, and that is where the effort should be. The moment you are beaten, and then President Museveni is chest thumping that these people will say that we won an election, yet 6 members of parliament went through unopposed on another aim. Then it will trickle down into the general election results a priori. Beforehand, they will always announce their victory for the president. After all, he has got even members of parliament who were unopposed. How then are you going to prove that you could have outwitted him at the presidential level when, that kind of argument can be easily taken up? But of course, it is also fallacious, because there are areas where, for instance, Honorable Kyagulanyi won President Museveni very badly, and yet President Museveni, the another aim, got the MPs. So this focus of effort must be within those areas, and that is the wisdom I can exude at this moment in my disadvantaged position, a man who comes from a party which has been captured by the state.
Thank you, Dr. Baiga. Herbert, let me come to you now. The issue of internal party dynamics, especially when it gets to contestations. I know you have the numbers, and with numbers, of course, comes a lot of grievances. I mean, even if the numbers are not that big, like we've seen with DP, certainly the grievances will be there. How does your party hope to handle these issues of dissent and defections, if and when they happen?
Well, I think a number of mechanisms are in place, including dialogue, which we have used several times, most especially on grounds whereby we don't want to split the constituency, or where we don't want to split the supporters. Some have been settled. Some have been offered different offers in order to keep hold of the grip of the members. However, a party like the NRM, which is a mass party, I call it a mass party because the NRM started elections a long time ago. In our party activities and structuring, we did not experience anywhere where no one picked a nomination form, right starting from the local council one. And we have grievance committees on various levels, on sub-county level, for example, where issues coming down from the ground can be settled. And as we speak now, we are also still settling some of the youth grievances we had in the previous election. So there are so many mechanisms, but also on matters of defection. If you have a party like the NRM, which has the biggest subscription in the country, and the positions available are limited, yet the numbers looking up to those positions are many, you don't hope that there won't be grievances and there won't be people who are also hungry and thirsty for positions coming in. You won't rule out having suffocation within the party, whereby there are those who are holding on a little bit longer or even much longer to leave those positions, so that others can come in, or even where you can have a healthy competition. So you expect all of those things to happen. Some will leave, some have left and come back. Like we have the biggest number of young people coming back to the NRM who had left in 2021. That is evident in my area in Nakawa West. And I had my friends here talking about the previous election. People go where they want convenience. And up to now, even in NUP, you can see people now starting to leave because already they are seeing hurdles ahead of them which cannot allow them to continue or even get a fair, maybe according to them, a fair reception. So defections in political parties, grievances in political parties, to me they are healthy. Because politics, unlike other institutions, you have to go for what you can get. There is no one who will wish for you good. Even those who wish for you will have to first see your capability. They have to see your capacity to go and get what you want. So grievances in the political parties are good. Where I find it unhealthy is where you don't have mechanisms of bringing back and holding your members into one piece. And I had George and Lurume, doctor. I am glad he distinguished his title. He's not a doctor of witchcraft. He's a doctor of medicine.
You would have seen me another attire.
But the analogy that, yes, the NRM has a much bigger advantage over other political parties, but not all the time. I don't see how George would say that the youth elections were ring-fenced and they could not go for any position.
No, I didn't say that.
It's kind of what you meant. No. Because if you say we are not allowed
it's
to
how
do
you
this,
understood
we are
it.
not allowed. We need to realize if you say elections are ring-fenced and you are fighting to be nominated, at the end of the day you contradict. Let them know. Like, for example, in our elections, a team need time.
I think what, like George says, he didn't say they were ring-fenced, but he actually underscored the fact that the irregularities that might, yes,
officials, just
state
like
officials, the state apparatus.
No. They will interfere, but also if I have no capacity to counter the interference, then I am not fit for that position.
So we should form counter.
I am saying countering
groups.
means you need to create counter forces within your supporters. I am not saying that you go and have a force to come and no, within your supporters. It is the supporters, a team that protect our election, our votes. It is not us. I vote from one polling station. That's where I am eligible to vote. I have no capacity. For example, my constituency has 136 villages. In our primaries, every village is a polling station. I have no capacity to be everywhere, but my supporters must be there. They must be able to protect my vote. They must be there to vote for me. They have to be there to make sure my declaration forms are duly signed. Anyone who has no capacity to have agents in every polling station, then there is something, and it is hard for you to win an election. We had about 50 or 60%. For example, in the youth elections, where we had unopposed candidates, and we had the officials from the NUP coming 2 days towards the election to come and plead with the Electoral Commission to open so that they can nominate. Secondly, also, let me tell you, this is why instead of you people abusing us, you should be listening to us, because we have the experience politically. I am not talking about Lulume, because Lulume has been, that's why he keeps bouncing back. He knows where the problem is. But elections require arrangement. Elections require organizing. Elections require being available. Whoever is not available in an election will face a lot of problems. And that is why there are areas that were organized. There are areas that had the people who were available and they participated and mobilized. So every time NRM wins, people come up to say they rigged, they did this. So to them, they don't expect NRM to win. To them, they don't expect NRM to participate fairly. Even there are excesses that happen, but these excesses also, even if NRM wanted, they don't have capacity to deploy and have every army, every officer in all polling stations, because even the polling stations are available are more than the officers in this country. So every time the NRM wins, come up to win, you don't have to attach it to the narrative that it is security that helped them. NRM has competent candidates. It has grassroots mobilization. It is the only party in this country that has every chairperson. In the previous elections, in 280 polling positions, NUP did not have a candidate. NRM was competing against itself. Independent NRM candidate. Sometimes you'll find where there is an isolated FDC, an isolated DP. But some of these positions, even we are going to these elections, you are going to see where about around 80% of the positions that other political parties are not competing in. So having numbers, and let me tell you this, for the last 10 years where opposition has intensified, I think this time NRM is more hungry, is more thirsty, like it has no numbers.
After 2021? After
2015. Because 2015 also had a wave of FDC in some areas. Then after 2021 also there was another extended wave. And this time we have studied. We have studied how these things happen. And we have also acknowledged our mistakes. We have been able to know that now there has been that sort of inertia within the party, that laxity. Someone has been there for 15 years, 20 years, and he thinks everything is okay. He relaxes. He gets more busier. Those things have happened.
40 years.
And
even
the inertia of 40 years, the president has been able every time to evolve himself, to come as if he has just come into. And that's why Lulume was saying, Museveni should not disguise as if he's campaigning. Yes, there are also the ability to have the time and do all of these zonal tours and also traverse the country. That alone, Lulume will be in the constituency only if there is a fat funeral.
Fat funeral.
They have those fat funeral. For them,
what is that?
They are those prominent. They are those prominent people.
They only go for burials of people who are prominent.
And the president has been able to evolve himself. The inertia of 40 years, we have not seen a gap anyway where the president is absent, either on national functions, save for COVID reasons. So he has been able to keep up with the population. That is for him. But for other positions, that inertia has been there. And I think the last 10 years have been able to reawaken us. And we have studied the dynamics. I am sure our team in this coming term, 2026, so much is going to happen. And I think the NRM is going to have quite a number of constituencies reversed to it. And in these youth elections that just happened, yes, there is so much to watch. We expected to find a lot of trouble in this election, but most of the young people were willingly coming to nominate with the NRM. Actually, even the party did not help previously the party contributed towards the youth elections. This time they did not. But still you saw young people, because they got that kind of false hope in the group that came in 2021, that abandoned them, that disappeared from them, that some of them actually, when they got elected, they even changed location. So they have seen a lot of mischief that they thought was going to liberate them, that would have answers for them, and they are coming back. Not only, if children are coming, do you think this is a discussion they are holding independently? Maybe it is an in-house, a very bad opposition than the NRM.
Well, my producer, Stephen Bitt, is telling me it's time for us to take a break. But when we return, we'll continue, of course, from where you've stopped. You've mentioned issues about young people returning. And also this week, I think we've seen a lot of commentaries online about parties nominating older people for MP slots, especially from the NRM camp. I think the talk of the town has been the nomination of General Moses Ali. But we've also, so the conversation is about generational politics. But we know every party wants to field their very best. But is it in the party's own interest to also field a candidate that is clearly not just old, but also frail and perhaps have lost their cognitive abilities or something like that? But also after the break, I'd like us to now to talk about the issues that will shape the 2026 campaigns. That's after the break. Welcome back from the break. It's 5 minutes past 10 o'clock. This is VPN, and we're asking what lies ahead as parties and individuals gear up for the 2026 polls. I'll give you the microphone now, George. I think you have a rebuttal for Hubbard following his submissions. But after that, of course, I want us to talk about the issue of generational politics in light of what we saw in the past week or so during the nominations or the returning of expression of interest forms, and of course the nominations of candidates in the different parties, especially the NRM. And of course, we shall also talk about the issues that will shape the 2026 campaign.
Well, I just wanted to make a quick response to my brother Herbert's assertions. Of course, he speaks like a person who has just come back to this country when he says, it's failure of mobilization, it's failure of the parties to organize a counterforce. The issues that bedevil elections and that we've seen in the special interest groups are issues that have happened on almost every election. That if you talk about a missing, a register coming back distorted, how are opposition parties supposed to counter that? To go and make their own register? If you talk about involvement of security groups, where security groups blocks out people who are ordinarily should be voters. In Chira, at about 6 centers, the election didn't take place. 3 of them ended in bullets. So how do you expect to organize, to say that you have a counterforce to do that? So we're talking about, if we get ourselves out of this NUP NRM politics, my brother Herbert is headed for primaries, and I've already seen some primaries of NRM, internal primaries, where people are even almost shooting at each other. This year alone, we've seen 2 by-elections where, if you start with Kisoro, the losing candidate in NRM said she was rigged out. So when Herbert comes here and tries to portray that NRM is the vanguard of democracy, haven't we had these cries in NRM of people being cheated, of RDCs interfering?
Maybe your interpretation of democracy is different.
You listen. I listened when you were talking, so you just listen. So when you're talking about, and we're going to see it even in their forthcoming primaries, when we in Kawempe, we saw what happened, where a candidate is flogged on nomination day. So how do you say that is the weakness of the opposition parties? So when we are talking about issues that transcend, because everyone should be interested in a clean vote, everyone should be interested in a clean election, everyone shouldn't have security decide who should be the candidate. The involvement of security agencies is one of those sticky issues. Since 2001, he's now preoccupied with the NUP. People were disappointed in NUP. This transcends NUP. Since 2001, we have had issues with the involvement of security agencies. Dr. Lulu Mezia, which has had Supreme Court recognition. And there's never an election. Even internal elections, like I told you, you remember the Sechikobo kicking boxes and with pistols in Zimbabwe in an NRM primary. So when we're talking about that security agencies, people who are not part of should be like RDCs should not involve themselves, it is in the interest of everyone. That is why even in internal elections of NRM, we are going to witness it. And I hope my brother doesn't come back here crying unless he's assured that the RDCs are on his side. Then secondly, he got my point wrong when I talked about, I didn't use the word ring fenced. I was referring to the issue of involvement of people, because electoral commission is supposed to be in charge of management of every aspect of the election. We should not have an RDC decide who should come, who should access this polling station or not, and that is the point. And then lastly, it's also wrong to look at NRM as a political party like other parties. NRM is a state party akin to the one in China. That is why an RDC feels it incumbent upon them to involve themselves, because they think they're on the side of NRM. Do we have any RDC anywhere in this country who has supported any opposition candidate and blocked NRM people from going there? So it's a fallacy to delude yourself that you know a political part of NRM, we've marshaled. It's a state party. It's a state party. Police thinks they are part of it. They think they're the armed wing of NRM. Soldiers think they're the armed wing of the NRM. The RDC, I think, are the armed wing of the NRM. And here we are deluding ourselves that you organize a counter force to protect your votes. Yes, it's imperative to be organized, but let us not be blind to the realities on the ground.
Thank you. Let me come to you, Dr. Lulu Mbaiga. I don't know if you have a rebuttal for Herbert, or if we will just proceed to the issue of generational politics, the old versus the young, and also what do you think will be the issues that will shape, not just think, but what will be the issues that will shape the DP campaign?
First of all, I want to re-emphasize that what we speak, people listen. And Anderson, be very careful, because you are young and energetic, and I believe you'll be a candidate on the ballot. Maybe as an independent, NRM leaning. Don't say that I didn't tell you.
Either way, you'll be a candidate.
That is what I believe. Don't say that I didn't tell you. So be careful with what you are saying. This NRM machinery is beyond control of very many people. It is certain people's interests must be protected within it, and you are not part of the core team there. So be tactful when you are communicating, so that you don't get tied with your own communication. The thing is deep-rooted, and it is quite exclusive unless you tell us that you are within the sitting room, not even in the bedroom. Be very careful. Those times when you used it to be very liberated, you would speak another language. So NRM, the Electoral Commission, the police, all the security agencies, including goons, they would think that they would monopolize the electoral exercises and exclude other people from participation or even winning an election. You see, there are even predeterminations that one will never see this door or will never be declared beforehand. And we must all prepare ourselves for that. I can see my brother Sechukubo of Remy Yaga was crying foul. Looks like he's looking at a rigging within his own party. Maybe he will also pick an independent ticket this time, because even whoever has been cleared, a general who has been cleared, I don't know if at all is qualified to be member of parliament. So these things are going to happen, and we must fight early. Now, you are talking about the generational politics. I am not of that school of thought that there should be generational politics which divides people according to age. If that was to be true, then Donald Trump wouldn't be president, and he wouldn't be vying against Joe Biden. They were both almost at the same age regiment. But there are very many people in the US who are much below their age who should have taken up the mantle. In my language, we say, "Emitie mito jeji gumize chibira," that the forest is thick because of the young trees. But the young trees don't make a forest per se. Otherwise, it would be a plantation of young trees. So a forest is a forest because of the old trees interspaced with the young trees. That is what makes a thick forest. And we need to depart from that kind of a thinking so that it can only be pronounced subtly. But it creates a polarization between the young and the old will not want to be excluded. And even the young, when they get in there, they will need the experiences of the old.
But Doctor,
so I think when we are making our manifestos, because it is this time when we should be thinking about what manifesto should carry the day, we must be thinking about how to blend experience with energy. We should blend enthusiasm of both the old and the young people. And we should create hope that everybody will create a Uganda that works for all without discrimination.
Well, sorry to cut you short, but just very quickly, I think the generational issue comes as a matter of concern, especially when you see a candidate not just old, but visibly frail and not in good cognitive shape. Isn't that an issue that should concern any Ugandan? Not just the political parties.
Leave alone that one. That one actually doesn't really pique the interest of discussion in terms of generation. For instance, without prejudice and with due respect, whose generation is Moses Ali leading?
The Museveni generation.
I mean, and I don't want to be prejudiced, but I want us to be sensible. General Moses Ali is visibly impaired in cognitive functions, like it or not, is visibly and physically impaired. And I think somebody will go to court to challenge his nomination on the basis of health. How does somebody leave office? I think the lawyer is here. When you suffer from permanent infirmity, I think that that is not characterization per se, but you can be in position to say, what does this mean? And it can call the Director General of Health Services to examine whether this person is fit for an office. Oh yes, the Director General of Health Services is the one who can even pronounce himself on the health of a president. And we must treat this as a clear case that it needs to, maybe in future we shall even make laws. But if at all you don't make law, at least it's some common sense. It should be, we should. But many times, very many people fear to indulge in these kind of conversations because they will say, after all, where I am, you are coming. And then you fear to make a comment about it. But we need people who can represent others, not just in a name and just taking the seat, but in active participation, so that people can get the benefits from the engagements at that level. NRM has a lot of fears about these kind of people, and I think it is quite shameful for NRM to hide away from these kind of realities, so that people who are fit to have the engagements at that level can take up those offices without fearing what somebody signed at one point in time, that somebody is going to die in office. You remember recently there were some engagements involved with the people who are in State House, and somebody was so anxious about what we call transition. She weeps whenever people continue to debate and put transition at the forefront. She has never seen herself really. She has never created a world where she's out of State House as a wife. So the word transition being debated creates a lot of tremors deep in her mind to see that people are discussing transition and it can happen. I think that is the anger which was expressed to me when I had presented the presidential transition bill. I saw a lot of anger coming from very, very, very deep-rooted NRM people, as if a transition should only occur when people die. A transition should not occur when people die. It must be prepared. It must be orderly.
It is one of the requirements.
It must be orderly. And we must work for it so that we can see future stability in our country without fearing that the unknown that can happen simply because there is no legislation. So those are the kind of areas we need to work on, and the old people at that area must be assured through our manifestos, and our ethos must reflect so, that aged people will be treated with respect and will be settled very well, cared for by young Ugandans who will take over from them, so that they don't really fear retirement, that it is going to be a retirement of shame. You feel embarrassed because security forces are going away, who have been around you are going to be trimmed and so on. That kind of anxiety comes especially when people have been in office for very long time, and it should end with this kind of system which we are living in today. We must prepare our mindset now so that old people do not feel that they'll be embarrassed by the coming of young people who are going to replace them. They should be comfortable that the young generation are going to carry the burden of seeing us through until we go to our makers, our maker for that matter. Yes, and this lacks. And I think that somehow, because of what we say, we are bottled up in anger of people who have failed to live after 40 years, and they seem not to be bothered about the future of the people they have been prevailing over for the last 40 years, and they don't think it matters a lot. So the anger continues to boil. As the anger continues to boil, and they can have the barometer to feel that pulse, then their anxiety also increases. Anger versus anxiety. That cycle can be broken with dialogue. So that people can know that, yes, you can continue to be who you are even when things change. That is what Dr. Semogeri worked for when he brought in what we call unity in diversity dialogue. And we have been working on that, so that even President Museveni and his friends will feel comfortable when young people come in, because they have been discussing, dialoguing with them, not because of dominance or feeling that they should be having privileged position against them, they against these others, so that when these others come on board, then they will be able to trample down upon them. So those are the things which we need to work on, and it begins with dialogue amongst us, the young and the old.
Okay.
Anxiety must be treated at this time for the old as the zealousness, the zealotry, for revenge. Even the zealotry for revenge can be there, especially for people who have been repressed for a very long time. We need to counsel them in time so that they know that when they are there, people should feel comfortable with all of them. I think that is the Uganda we want.
Thank you. But let me come to you now. The issues that will actually shape the NRM campaign. I know there are lots of issues that are cross-cutting, but also there are issues that are specific to particular regions. For example, in the north, the Balalo question would certainly be a deciding factor for the vote. But what are the issues, broadly speaking, but also that you think would sway the vote in different regions?
Well, I think for the issue of the north is not a big issue. It's a matter of good enough. It's not a social issue. It's an economic matter, beneficial to all. The question is on maybe the dishonesty used in its discussion. But I think that will be discussed at the strategic level, and I don't think politically it has a very disturbing challenge politically, politically, I think there are a number of MPs from opposition in the north who have crossed to the NRM already before elections. That is a plus to the NRM. We have not seen so much happen in the far east and the east. I think the region has been stable, and political also it has a connotation to it, and I think there is much to happen. It will be in Buganda or central Uganda. That's where I see in most of these areas, for your information, like in most areas, part of Buganda, part of western Uganda, part of the far east, the election will end in primaries. The biggest contestation will end in primaries. Whoever takes the flag has 70% of the election, the general election. So much of it, I think we are going to have so much happen in the primaries, because it's in the primaries where you have the biggest party, maybe also with the biggest shots in the country fighting for those positions. You find a wife of a general versus a wife of a commissioner versus a minister versus that, all powerful people. And that's where the main issue for me is going to come from. And that's where the contestation is going to come from, because big people will be competing amongst themselves. And to us in the party, it is where I have a challenge. And I have raised this even to the party officials and the secretariat, that much as you are telling us that people will sign an MOU, barring them from participating as independents if they participate in the primaries. And I asked them if they have a guarantee that this election will be credible. If they can assure us that the election will be credible, then you can go ahead and bring the MOU, because I think one will leave knowing that I have lost on fair grounds. If one loses, there is a colleague of mine in Nakawa, they were on councillor level. So they made an agreement, both candidates, that if you win me, I will support you. If I win you, you support me. They agreed. So one won, and the other came as an independent. Then he asked, you said you will support me. And then he replied and said, I will support you if you win me, but you rigged me. So that that was not in the agreement, that if you rig me. So the biggest challenge will be in our party primaries, because in an election of party primaries and our election is so problematic that it is more of a general election, because you have to go back to the party members, not a committee. You are not nominated like in other political parties, who pretend that they did research and they found that you are the fitting person. You can't have research. For example, in Akawa West, we have more than 30,000 members in Akawa alone who are registered. So there is no way one can tell you that you did research in 31,000 members, and they give you their opinion. So it is more of a general election compared to other political parties, and the spillover usually is so far-reaching, because you can tell what happened in the election, whether you were rigged, whether you are disadvantaged, whether those conducting the election are unfair to you and they are giving false results. So the challenge, the first challenge in the coming elections will be the party primaries of the NRM, because they are conducted on adult suffrage basis, not college, not what. If we had a spillover of this youth, just a section of the community, now what will happen if the entire register is opened? So that is where I see the biggest problem. In the general election, in some areas it will be a battlefield, because I told you earlier on that us as a party, we are hungry for certain constituencies. We are hungry for numbers, and we are hungry that it has taken some good time. The lapse of 10 years alone, or maybe 15, and good enough. I think God is on our advantage, that some of the people who have been there have exhibited that there is nothing much they can do. If you came, I was arguing on X with some group of people when I posted about the results of the Nakawa West youth elections. And he was saying, you are going to come where Museveni has not done this, Museveni has not done this, the opposition. So I said, if you are electing on the basis of that, have those who were elected done even a single bit? If your basis is on the infrastructure that the Museveni did not do, and that was a result of the opposition winning, has the opposition done that, if that is the discussion? So the general election for me will be a little bit hectic.
But clearly the job of the opposition is not to build infrastructure.
Yeah, that's what that was the argument. Actually, it's not even the job of the MP. That is the work of local government and government. So my argument was the basis for which he raised the argument. I was not saying that is the rationale, the basis of the MP the work of the MP to do. We have kinda, and to me this is also important. The school of 1996, the Moses Ali's, the school of 2001, and the school of 2006 is getting out for some reasons. Also some kind of 2010, they are getting out. And even within the party, we are seeing the trajectory of the young people. I saw the results of the primaries of LC5 chairpersons of the NRM within the party. So many young people coming in. So many young people being elected by party members. We saw so many ministers actually being voted out. I saw the picture of Crispus Chionga in Kasese. People voting him out as the chairman of the district for the NRM. So that also gave me a shock, kinda, that maybe there is also a shift within the party to send back home some of the MPs who had maybe stayed for long. And don't be shocked if we have a very different result of the party primaries in the which is coming, which are due like in less than a month's time.
Okay. How about we need to move on? Let me come to you, George. The issues still, among the issues, of course, that will shape the campaign as we head to 2026.
Well, just allow me to make two quick reactions because you didn't give me a chance to react to the generational issue. I'll make it very quick. One, I think ordinarily our laws don't stop anyone, given that even a person over 18 can stand for president. There is no minimum or maximum. There's a minimum, which is 18, but there's no maximum age. And of course, even on a lighter note, when Dr. was talking about people's mental cognitive abilities, I remembered that last year there's a gentleman who went to court seeking court to compel Otabico Hospital to carry out a mental examination on one of the state ministers, an involuntary admission, which case was, of course, never had and disposed of. But one of the reasons why we are seeing this, it's even becoming an issue, it's largely because of the 40-year blockage of Mr. Museveni at the top. You find that it has tended to indirectly influence a number of people, both within his party and otherwise. I remember when the late Jacob Bolanya wanted to run against the speaker then, Mrs. Kadag, in the 10th Parliament, and they said, no, we have an unwritten rule that the speaker serves for 2 terms, and so you wait for my 2 terms to exist. When the 11th Parliament came and the Right Honourable Kadag was reminded when she wanted to run, and actually indeed she later ran for the speakership, she was told that, oh, you said you were running for the 2nd term. She said, but how comes you've not told Museveni, who has also even changed the constitution? So that influence, that negative influence, there are even people in opposition who, whenever they ask them, when will you go, they say, but my duty is to fight Museveni, I'll go when he goes. So, but for as long as I've had that from some 2 MPs, ask them, but he said, no, but for me, I'm here to fight Museveni. So the constitutional framers envisaged initially. Of course, we have some constitutional scholars like Dr. Businje Kabomba who think that this constitution as we have it now is a shadow, is a shell of what the framers made in 1995. Envisaged presidents of at most 10 years. And of course, they envisage these generations to be shifting. But now, because we have a blockage at the top, if even for the people who are talking about, Ephraim Kamu to what, the bigger issue, the bigger, bold, negative influence is the blockage at the top. Then, very quickly also, in response to my brother Herbert, there's this thing they flaunt around that, for us we're democratic. But he contradicts himself when he said people are being told to sign for NRM that you not run as an independent. And then he said that, no, you have to assure me that I will not be rigged. Yet he had earlier flagged the NRM to be the Democratic Party, that you people, your opposition, you organize. So why do you rig internal primaries? If NRM organize, it should be opposition. He said the opposition can never be rigged. They are just not organized. So why are you scared of internal elections being rigged? Even this fallacy that, for us we hold adult suffrage. Do you know what happened in 2021? By a stroke of an order, their chairman told them to abandon the register. By overnight, they said, no, tomorrow we are not. How do you go into an election without a register? How can you describe that as an election? You talk about 31,000 voters. How do you get 31,000 voters in Nakawa to line up? How? So it's all a fallacy.
It's just running a single polling station.
No, actually, for instance, in Kawempe North, the NRM register purportedly has 200,000 people, and there's a zone which is like a village which has 21,000 people. How do you get 21,000 people to line up in a few hours? So all that's just a sham. But however, regarding the issues, what issues do we are likely to face? Of course, different regions have different issues. If you look at the central region here, one of the things that tilted and why people, even the last time, what people called the wave, actually I think it was a protest, and Dr. Lulume hinted on it. It was a protest of the poor service delivery. It was a protest of the a runaway corruption. It was a protest of the gross human rights violations. Of course, if you look at the people who are missing since the last election, the 18 missing Ugandans, they are all from the central region. If you look at the people who are still incarcerated, the known ones from the last election, they are all from the central, apart from I think the 5 from Bali, but most of them are from the central region. If you look at the beatings, if you look at the abductions, they have had until recently when we started having a trait. I know even in Jedu there's someone who has picked, but these people are at the center of looking at this runaway corruption, of looking at the very poor service delivery, and then looking at the gross human rights violations, and that has not changed. I think the issues of rule of law and human rights violations will stick, will form a very crucial aspect of the voting trends, even in this election, because we have not seen any change in that.
Okay, thank you. We're coming to you, Doctor, after the break, but I just wanted to bring to your attention something that my producer, Stephen Bide, just shared with me. The Weekend Vision says race to the presidency, and they have this opinion poll conducted by professional researchers ahead of election. It says, who will you choose as your president in 2026? And it shows us voter preferences by region, age, and gender. Voters speak out on who they will vote for in 2026. But the graphics here shows that voters will give President Yoweri Museveni the incumbent 73.3% of the vote. NUP's Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu will take 19% of the vote. UPC's Jimmy Akena gets 2.4%. Dr. Kizza Besigye 2.3%, Mugisha Muntu 1%, Amuriat Patrick Oboy 1%, and General Muhoozi Kainerugaba 1%. This is just I'm just throwing it up to you. I'm sure you'll just have something interesting to think about. But also, as we continue to talk about the issues, I want us to also talk about the power of slogans and campaign themes. Right now, NUP is going with the slogan "Protest Vote." 2021, they moved with "People Power, Our Power." The NRM this time says, settle for the best. Museveni is the best. 2021 NRM had Museveni Paka last, secure your future. DP, the oldest party, has maintained its truth and justice slogan. The PFF says freedom for all for freedom. That's the official party slogan. FDC is yet to come up with a slogan ahead of 2026. Hopefully after the delegates conference we shall have something coming up from them. The Democratic Front says real change, act now. And the UPC, whose party president Jimmy Akena has already stated he's not running for the MP seat again, but is setting his eyes for the presidency, has also kept the UPC everywhere UPC. So we'll be asking, what is the power and impact of slogans in an election or campaign? That's after the break. Welcome back from the break. 10:42 a.m. We are still talking about what lies ahead as parties and individuals gear up for the 2026 polls. I'll give you the mic now, Honorable Lulu Mebaiga. Yes, the issues, of course, first of all, the issues that you think will shape the campaign or the 2026 elections from your region, but also if you could talk about cross-cutting issues that, you think should actually be highlighted, that should be amplified, and citizens should rally around those issues. And also, like I mentioned, the sloganeering and campaign messaging, to what extent do you think citizens resonate with some of these messages?
Yeah, well, it depends. It depends where you are. The political literacy differs from one region to another. And certain regions are at a higher level than others. One region will react to a road that has been opened in their place, and they will say status quo. Then yet another region, a road will be opened in their region, and they will say thank you very much, but change anyway. But for me, for a ruler who has been around for 40 years and want to continue to rule, even to establish a dynasty, so that even his son categorized as a standby generator. We have got two categories of Ugandans, wherever you will find them. Either they are for status quo, that we are ready to have more of the same, pro status quo, and against the status quo. Those will be for change. And I believe if we had a political party called opposition, I would advise the political party called opposition to carry the theme of change and then tailor every other aspect of their manifesto towards that change. For those in the NRM, of course, there is obvious. They will say status quo, Mzee itova kumaini, and I think they have indicated so that even Mzee goes out of the main, there is a standby generator to proceed. So Ugandans will be divided into, it will be a referendum of change against status quo. Now, there are various issues which must inform the policy agenda that will be inform the manifestos of the various opposition parties, but also the opposition if it unites to front one candidate, and that is what I believe it should be. The issue of lopsided, the balance of power, first and foremost, balance of power. Not political responsibilities given, but real power to make decisions for our respective regions and to share the national cake has been demonstrated very well that it lies in the family of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. He will give you crumbs, he will give you jobs, he will throw you an opportunity here and there without power. The issue of powerlessness has now been understood to the grassroots of people previously who did not delve into understanding how government should work we will now discuss sensibly that every other aspect of government has been monopolized by the president of Uganda in State House. And they don't want that over heaping of power into an individual. You will now, the discourse of how parties have been annexed and taken over by an individual who doesn't want opposition, and the political space being monopolized by that individual, can now be discussed at household level. So the issue of centralization of power, because it has now taken a central position, will inform our discussion and messaging to that. The issue of human rights. Look at the way, let me, before I leave that, look at the way you can frame an individual and keep them in prisons. The way you can manipulate parliament so that you can always have the power over the judicial system, so that you can witch hunt whoever is complaining or would like to vie against you for power. Look at the capture of parliament, the judiciary, of course, even the UPDF being captured, or security forces, including government institutions. Look at the way ministries are being established around the president, leaving the real ministries, constitutional ministries there, but departments established and they work parallel to the ministries of government, informing the president of what to do, not the real ministers in cabinet. So that centralization has now been discussed, and I believe that people would want to see that change to come. People want to see themselves powerful. Nobody wants to see themselves powerless, even at the household level. They should be in position to raise their voices, and they want to be heard, and their voices must be responded to by those who were lent power. Human rights. How does this government respond to human rights abuses, including incarceration of people without charges, death, and so on, lawlessness, especially in the hands of those people who have got the power to hold the gun with impunity? This will inform our discussion. Then look at how resources have been distributed, distribution of resources. It is causing a lot of anger in the population. I was in Gulu, and therefore we had a regional parliament sitting in Gulu, and I listened in. Even to those who belong to the NRM will tell you that they have been left behind. They have been left behind because there has been an inherent and embedded will by the state to keep them in abject poverty. And that is why the programs which have always been undertaken by government are programs to ensure that people survive, not to make people live and flourish. So they can continue to have handouts to the pleasure of those holding power. They have never had power, even when you give them ministries. You have the Minister of Justice, now you have got the Chief Justice and so on. You can throw them those crumbs. But once they don't have power, even within their offices, people will continue to look for power. Mm-hmm. And once this one is put to the discussion of the people, it will inform. Okay? There are very many other things, of course, social services, corruption. Those are daily songs, and I don't think they will be able to create genuine change, because people have accepted the new normal of corruption. And so when you are corrupt and you bring them money, they will appreciate it. Those who are not corrupt, they will be taken as fools who have been occupying positions, and they cannot really look for that kind of money. I don't know how that one is going to change. Okay? But opportunities for all will be discussed, and demonstrably so. President Museveni has demonstrated, even when you use their government books, you will find how positions and opportunities have been put to people who are loyal and who come from maybe a family or a region and so on. When without prejudice, these are published, this data, which we can find in many books within government, published by them, and we shall be able to bring out those distribution of opportunities, and the people will judge. And finally, the priorities over time. My research desk has teased out the priorities of government over time, and we shall share with those who are more powerful than us, so that they can put this under their consideration, how government has been distributing the national cake to various priorities, whether they are pro-people or pro-individuals. We shall be informing that discussion in the next coming election.
Thank you. So, Herbert and George, you know, the president time and again talks about the politics of identity. He's against all these tribal differences and so on. But also, last time we had the lifting of the presidential age limits, we saw how it impacted MPs, especially from the NRM side. I think the last time we had probably around 57% of incumbents not returning to Parliament. And also this time we see the MPs from the opposition side warning that the issue of the Kofi Amendment and the recent UPDF Amendment Bill will be a deciding factor, will determine the vote, especially here in Central Region. I don't know if you have a similar perception, if you agree with this assumption or assertion.
Of course, it will be. Of course, it will be. But most importantly, there even apart from what has been happening on the front of Parliament, there are other things that people can see, especially when we talk about service delivery and the most core public services. That includes roads, that includes health services, and that includes education services. There's hardly anything that you can see that there's been an improvement over the last 5 years, that there has been a deliberate improvement of government public service delivery. You talked about sloganeering, and you remember that when they came into 2021, they were flagging PDM as the game changer. Never mind that it was running on the background of Emioga, of youth livelihood, which you don't know, and they don't even sit to assess that what stopped Emioga. Now, where we started from, you are saying that, you know, Mr. Museveni is on a tour of the success stories of PDM. Ideally, success stories wouldn't be even toured. They would be for everyone to see. Yes, they would be for everyone to see. If there's a transformation in Nakawa West or in Wikwe or in any other part of if you're talking about the Central Region, it would be for everyone to see, and you wouldn't even have to ferry people. The last time Mr. Museveni came for a rally in Kawempe North elections, some of the dissatisfied people who were not given, I think, their transport refund had been moved from as far as Kasokoso in Chia municipality. They were captured on camera saying we were not given even us in Kasokoso want to see the president visitors. So the essence is that there has not been any deliberate change or improvement that you'll say that what has been happening in Parliament notwithstanding. Yes, it will. Some of those things will shape. Just this week, Mr. Museveni signed the UPDF Amendment Act now, and the last time why people were having lots of issues with in the elections is because so many people, so many youths in the Central Region, over 500 of them, were sent on remand in different prisons by court martials. Army courts, the General Court Martial, the one in Bombo, the Division Court Martial, sent hundreds of youths. So some of those issues are likely to still directly influence the voting trends.
Thank you very much. And of course, it's time for us. I'll give you a minute just to respond, and then we wind up. Stephen is telling me we just have 3 minutes to go. If you have something to respond to, but also if you could just tell me your thoughts about this opinion poll that we are seeing, saying your chairman has a bigger slice of
in the last 15 years.
73.3%.
Well, I think he'll even get more than that this time. But they are opinion polls anyway, so they are conducted based on the interests of the one doing so. However, I think to respond to George Moses, I think it was 1975 or 76 when the former president of Congo argued that Africa should not be called least developed. African countries and other countries shouldn't be called least developed countries. And his argument was that even countries like America, Britain, and others were still developing. And that's when they changed it to developing countries, because it is progressive. The issue of development is a progressive one. Even 100 years later, we will be developing. And let's not say that the issue of PDM, the president has the biggest microphone and speakers in this country, more than anyone. And you also tend not to know what is happening around the country until you get to reach there. The stories of PDM are not stories of the rich men. They are stories that give hope to others. They are stories that encourage others in the country to have a shift in their mindset. That's why mindset change is one of the pillars of PDM. And all of them are interlinked. So whether there is one story in Buyukwe, it is enough to inform about maybe 10,000 others that you can follow suit. Where we have failed with the PDM, but also have not failed, I think we can realign it, is to find markets for the PDM.
Okay.
And link those markets. Don't leave it local, but have a way of linking it to the bigger market.
Thank you.
For production and other purposes.
Okay. Dr. Baiga, just in 30 seconds, Kathy is already set for the news.
Well, let me just thank the panel. It was good to have Anderson and have George. Let us continue to be hopeful. Let us unite our country. And let us unite it, the young, the middle-aged, including the old. Let us all be comfortable for Uganda, which can work for everybody.
Thank you.
Greetings to the people of Buyukwe South.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Herbert Anderson Barora, Dr. Lulu Mbaiga, and you, Council Judge Mrs. for your insights on this show. And thank you to all of you who tuned in. We shall be back next Saturday, same time. Have yourselves a pleasant weekend.